Juniors did it in income.
I can read standards.
Okay, let's put Paige on her desk. Okay, we're back. Here we go.
She's in her seat.
Yeah, I always like to put people in their actual seats.
Because it helps with learning.
It does, right? Okay. So the only thing, Paige, that we forgot to bring you up to speed. She's not going to be live because I didn't share a link with her, so she'll just have to watch this later. So, we're talking about language. Language is made up of phonemes, morphemes, and grammar. Phonemes are a single sound in a language. Morphemes have meaning. Grammar, that's where we were. Okay, so syntax is the order that words go in. And some languages have different orders that they put words in, okay? Semantics is the other element of grammar that's important. That has to do with word meaning. Okay, so it's not just good to put words in the right order. It's also good to understand what they mean. Yes. Yeah. There you go, right? Yeah, we learned semantic encoding, right? Was encoding by meaning. So it makes sense that the semantics of language are the meaning behind
so
words.
arguing semantics would be like, well, you said this, and technically that can mean this.
Yes, yeah. So like when you quibble over semantics, yeah, you're like, well, you said this, which could be interpreted as. Right. So there you go. Okay. All right. So that's what makes up language. Let's talk about how you acquired that, the stages of development. So when you were a tiny baby, or if you're learning a new language now, like as a young adult, you're enrolled in a world language, you're going through the same process. And it's funny. Maybe you're skipping babbling, but you're going through the similar process. Step one is that receptive language always comes before productive language, right? You understand what's being said before you can say it yourself. Receptive language. Yeah, right? Like you receive language first. So there are little kids that can't talk but yet understand what you are saying. In your French class, you might not be able to respond, but you can probably understand what is written on the paper or understand what is being said to you. Okay. Productive language is actually being able to say things. Before you get to actual productive language, though, most babies are in what's called a babbling stage. So like they can just make noises and sounds, but those may or may not have meaning behind them. They're just making sounds. When you get to true productive language, it can be divided into 1-word and 2-word stage. Okay, so productive language is, look, this is what gets hard. Babbling would be considered like in between receptive and productive because you're making sound, you're producing sound, but it's not communicating. It's not quite language yet, right? So productive language is probably the 1-word phase. Your book doesn't use this term, but it's also called holographic speech. If you ever see holographic speech, that's the same thing as the 1-word stage. Holographic speech.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that doesn't help us in.
So that's just kind of like saying yes and no and.
Yeah. Now I will say that most children will start out, and it doesn't matter what language you speak, which is kind of cool. No matter what language you're immersed in, you'll probably start with nouns. Right. And I want to understand, like, you can still communicate a whole lot of information with a noun. It's in the tone and remember, language can be tone. Language could also be signs that we use. So my example this morning was, think of a little kid and the word ball. They're in the 1-word stage. They might go ball, 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 and you're like, they're saying, where's the ball? right? Or they might look and say ball. There is the ball. Yes, very good. They might go ball, meaning I want the ball. Like, do you know, like they still communicated all three sentences using one word and adding inflection and tone and gestures with it. So just anytime you travel to a different country, even if you know some of the language, that's usually like, I just think of myself, right? I don't know Spanish, but going, Baño? Baño? Right, like, Baño? And people knew, like, like, that's all I needed. And they're like, you know, they give me verbal directions. And then I was like, let me show you, right?
Like, come
with me. Here it is, right? There it is, right there. You can communicate a lot just with one words and hand signals or gestures. Okay, the 2-word phase is also called telegraphic speech. Think like a telegram, although that doesn't really help you because you've probably never sent a telegram. That's like way past. Yeah, like texts when there were limits to how many like things you could say.
Tweets.
Text when your limit was 2 words.
Yeah, like super.
Were
Limited.
telegrams ever in Morse code? Did you
No.
think of it as like dot dash being 2 things?
No, I don't think telegrams were. I think they were actually words. Yeah,
So,
but it was very shortened into what you could say in a telegram. Because you had to pay, so it's like, well, I guess somebody's translating in Morse code. You know, like, so you didn't want to send a whole lot. So, you know, like your book gave examples of like send money, you know, and then the answer back, payment received. So kids start out with verbs and nouns. Nouns in the 1-word stage, verbs and nouns, right? Like want milk.
or give me ball.
Yeah, give me ball, right?
It's like a Geico commercial.
Go grandmas, you know, like that's
No adjective.
There-
nothing
yeah.
Fancy.
right, nothing fancy, just 2 words that
Go
still
grandma.
communicate.
What's grandma?
Go grandma.
Yeah.
Siri, call
Do a
Grandma.
good job.
Right, that's it.
Siri,
grandma.
Okay, so
Calling grandpa.
that's how you acquired speech. There are actually 2 different theories. Okay, both theories are okay with the stages, the receptive versus productive, and the 1-word, 2-word, the babbling before that. Everyone's okay with that, right? The 2 different theories, though, are somebody you actually already know, Skinner, and operant conditioning. That was the suggested theory for how people learned language for a long time.
So,
Yeah, you were conditioned to learn language.
You said something right, you got applauded. You got what you wanted.
I
Right.
feel like that makes sense.
Yeah. So you were babbling.
Well, then I'm gonna get rid of it.
You were babbling. You were just saying sounds. Sounds were just coming out, and you accidentally put ma back to back, and some lady freaked out and was super excited, right?
Some lady.
Well, you're an infant, so
The
I
one
mean,
who feeds you.
yeah, that lady that feeds you
The large
started clapping and happy and cheering and paying attention. And
your
so
dad's
that in-
grumpy in the corner.
That increased the likelihood that you would say it again, right? What do you mean? What about? I'm sure somebody's still talking to them.
Yeah, but they're not gonna freak out as much for first.
Right, that's true. So that's where the limitations of Skinner occur, right? So yeah,
Say
like
it again. The
just
parent
say-
turns and looks or recognize,
Right, yeah,
they
like
get a
there's-
reaction out of it.
yeah, you get reactions out of things, so it increased the likelihood you would say those things.
Is that why little kids play?
Okay. And then probably as you advanced, the reinforcement, right, became less continuous, more intermittent. You probably stopped being reinforced for just saying 2 words. Like I think about my nieces who are 4, and they'll sit like, milk or whatever, and I'll just look at them, and then they'll go, please. I'm like, nope, that's not how it works. It's like you have to say the complete sentence for me to respond. Auntie, yes. May I please have some more milk? Yes, now I will get it for you. I'm not going to get it when you're just like a baby. Like you're not a baby, right? So you're reinforcing, right? all of that, okay? Like, that Skinner would say is how you learn language. But that does have some limitations, right? And so that's where you get your paper here, okay? Your book, sorry to say, I'm not disappointed with old David Myers often, but he gives like a paragraph to Chomsky, and I'm like, ooh, like, no, that's not enough. So here's just like a nice summary from I borrowed from a teacher professional development class. I took it a long time ago, but there you go, right? No, I didn't take it. But it's for a teacher professional development thing. So I'm like, oh, this will work. It's a good summary. Okay. Chomsky's theory comes out in the mid-60s. It is like revolutionary because it like flies in the face of behaviorism, right? Like, which was the go-to thing for, you know, from the 20s through the 60s till we get to the cognitive revolution, you know, the 60s. So you might know Noam Chomsky as a political science writer. That's the same guy, right?
Yeah,
So
like I heard Chomsky, I was like, I feel like I know him. But
yeah,
not
right.
that
Like he
well.
writes a lot about international relations and U.S. involvement in overseas. Like, so you might have read him in a government class or debate or whatever. The same guy, but a world famous linguist. He said that language is inborn. Okay, that you just come with universal grammar. You see that? I bolded that on the front for you, right? You just come with universal grammar. You come pre-programmed to speak any language on the planet. So if I had kidnapped you as an infant and taken you to another country, you would be speaking that language just fine and dandy.
Yeah.
And that in that babbling phase, he said all those sounds you were making, maybe you were rolling R as well, or doing your R heck perfectly, because you're just going through the sounds. By about 10 months, you start only babbling sounds related to the language you've been hearing the whole time. Yeah, right? This is why uber wealthy people hire au pairs or nannies that are from other countries and to instruct them to speak entirely in their native language to their child, because then you get an instant bilingual kid.
Oh, that's so unfair.
She probably could do that pretty fairly well. Yeah. Yeah.
But then it'll be
Oh,
confusing
right.
for them because they don't know
That would be
the difference.
What
Like,
did you just say, Juliet?
but then that would be confusing for them because they don't know the difference. Like, they know that they're two different things, but I'm sure they'd mix them up a lot.
Okay. This is why a lot of people don't teach their children more than one language. That is actually a myth. It will not mix them up.
It won't.
Because, look, when Chomsky came out with all of this and said it's not going to mix them up, like bilingual people are fine. Because a lot of people that like emigrate to the United States, like, oh, I don't want my son or daughter to speak that. I want them to assimilate, you know. I'm not going to teach them that. They don't get confused because neuroscience has since proven that a lot of Chomsky's ideas are right. He's got a lot of things in his favor, meaning that, you ready? If I were to stick a bilingual child into an MRI, different neural pathways illuminate depending on what language you're speaking.
That's so cool.
That's why, so when writers try to write in bilingual, like speak Spanish, English, or immigrants, like bilingual people get so angry because they're like, no, I don't sit there and confuse the words and say, oh, I meant to say that one in
Nope.
Spanish.
Nope.
Just know.
And if you've ever listened to someone having a conversation, especially two bilingual people, that's always fun. We might flip back and forth between Spanish and English seamlessly. You're right?
But
Like,
it's like on purpose. You're not doing it accidentally.
no, I mean, it's two different neural pathways that will not confuse a child. Kids can flip back and forth between them, no problem. And now,
Is that why when, like,
Spurgeon's son, if she has been speaking Spanish to him from the get-go, will probably have a fairly easy job of learning Spanish. But she can't wait too long to start that. Like, that has to be started from early on. And he will always speak English or speak Spanish with an English accent because he's being taught by somebody that, although she's fluent, is an American speaking Spanish. She herself is not bilingual. Isn't that fascinating?
Well, that's why
But if you're taught by a native speaker, you wouldn't have, yeah.
or like a French person.
Yeah.
That spoke Spanish.
So if my parents would have been uber wealthy and my au pair would have been French, call her Vivian. I don't know in my mind that's her name. You know, right? Vivian would have been her name, right? And she would have spoken to me en français. I could have a native accent
A friend.
of French
But a native English accent.
and a native English accent.
Wow.
What
Oh, I
if
have a
you-
friend that does that.
Yeah.
He was born in France. He grew up in France, but his parents are from America. So he has a little bit of a French accent just because he spends time around people that have French accents.
And he was there when he was little. Okay.
But he doesn't speak it like a native French speaker, but he speaks it like an American.
Yeah.
I didn't notice that.
Yep. So what else?
Oh, that's why like when I was teaching Japanese, when we had the teacher that actually came from Japan, like I could tell the difference like between her speaking it and when Sensei Kramer was saying it as well because of Kramer. Because you could like it's just the way that the sounds come out. You can tell.
Sure. Yeah, there's slight differences. So you will always be pegged as an American.
That's why it's hard to fake an accent.
Yeah, extremely hard. Like kudos to actors that
Troy
work with
Sivan's
a language coach
accent
to
and voyeurism
like memorize
perfect.
lines using a different.
That's why a lot of
Accent.
singers
Yeah,
like One
people talk to
Direction.
them and they repeat that.
Yeah.
Like that's why One Direction, like a lot of them had accents, but when they sang, you couldn't tell. That's because they were coached.
Yeah, like because you can be coached up, right?
What if you emulated an accent, like a native speaker? Like,
Look, I suppose with time you could get better and better at it.
If I
Like,
like you in the middle of France right now.
but I mean, I think that unless you were consciously focused on using it, it's just not.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
that's
It's
what
going to be
mean,
more
like,
of
if
an
you-
unconscious process for a bilingual
That's why you
person.
find yourself talking.
I mean, yeah, like I'm not saying you can't pick up other dialects or
like your weird
accents, but
Southern uncle comes to town. You're
Right.
like, yes, now I talk in
Yeah.
a Southern accent.
Bye, y'all. Yeah, I don't know. But that's a lot harder. I would say that. Do you know what I
In
mean?
your
That
own language.
Yeah. Right. Okay, so Chomsky's really onto something here. So you came pre-programmed with how to put sentences together. You came pre-programmed with being able to speak any sound needed to speak any language on the planet. Okay, and if you flip it over, right, you also came with this handy language acquisition device. So he just says it's not external, it's biological, which made the behaviorists very upset, right? Like Skinner's like, no, it's not. So look, you learn both theories. It's probably a combination of both, right? But there's a lot of compelling evidence that Chomsky was on, just like neuroscience supports a lot of what he just had as a theory back in the 60s, right? Concerning how we acquire language, which is why it's always more difficult at your age to learn another language, because that language acquisition device's critical period would have been from like birth to age 5 or 6, and then after that, you have some pruning in the neural networks. Things that weren't used kind of fade in that long-term memory, and now it's not there. I can take as much French as I want, but I always sound like an American speaking French.
So then, how would these theories apply to like the case of the girl that was involved in the murder?
Yeah,
But would she also go through the stages of like babbling and stuff? or-
she did,
She did. She just didn't
but she,
surpass past it.
yeah,
Okay,
So she-
went. So that the babbling comes on automatically then.
hmm
These are all.
but like, Chomsky would say, not until like you're, like that's where it's like a combination. You probably have to be exposed to it. Like if you were raised in silence, you're not going to just know what to do, but you possess all the tools, they're there. So the minute you start hearing language, then,
Okay.
okay? So like your book gave an example of like little kids that receive cochlear implants. They'll progress through these same stages, just probably more condensed and faster, right? And Jeannie she was such an extreme case of isolation that she progresses through the stages, but doesn't really make it past the 2-word stage.
Genie.
For Jeannie. Okay. So language acquisition device and universal grammar are terms you need to know that weren't in your book, okay? Universal grammar is just, right, like the kid's ability to speak any language. Language acquisition device would just be the biological like component that allows you to do this on your own. You didn't have to be reinforced.
So the people who were very into like evolution, like this theory as well.
This Chomsky?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess.
Just depends what kind of evolution story.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't know if they paid much attention except when how language led to better survival, you know. So yeah, right. A great proof that universal grammar is something that all of us possess is overgeneralization of grammar. Have you ever heard a little kid make a grammar mistake that if Skinner was 100% right, we would never hear? So I goaded to the bathroom instead of I went to the bathroom. Well, none of the rest of us are saying I goaded. So why would, if operant conditioning was true, why would they do that? Well, Chomsky said, well, you have this universal grammar, so they started picking up, like the ED was the past tense, but so they then apply that rule even in exceptions to the rule.
But to think about it, that's what we
Oh my
I would do in
gosh.
Spanish.
Yes.
Irregular words, you just add the specific.
It's just like,
So technically, the kids are making logical sense.
Yeah, right. Like but then it's wrong because there's all these subtle nuances and exceptions.
But
He's
we're
just
not
saying-
learning it back the same way. We're learning.
Yeah. But he would say that even a native speaker, that you still make mistakes like that just because you came pre-programmed with this universal grammar, your English switch was flipped on, you start going and you start like misapplying these
I
things.
gonna, wanna, I see.
Yeah, right. Right. All of that good
I
stuff.
hate that.
Okay.
now that I know this, I'm gonna be more lenient on people who say stuff like that, but at the same time, it makes me so angry. It's so bad.
I know,
It's
I
just
can't
ugly. It's
handle
ugly
seeing
sounding.
it.
Okay. Your book talked about aphasia, damage to the brain, but we've already done Broca and Wernicke, so we don't need to cover that again. And we did them in Unit 3. Okay, the last thing in this module then is Benjamin Whorf and his hypothesis of linguistic determinism, which is fascinating, right? Linguistic determinism is saying that words influence your thinking. And on the flip side, our thinking can influence words. Like we can create new words, like to reflect thoughts and behavior. Okay? Yes, right? Now that I thought you were talking about Elon Musk's now ex-girlfriend. They broke up over the break.
Yes.
They did.
Oh.
Okay. So look, here are some fascinating facts according to the Whorf hypothesis. If you have bilingual individuals take some of those personality tests that we took in Unit 10. Yeah, right? What happens?
They get different results.
They
They're
get
like in a different mindset.
Different different results as a result of the language they take.
Like
in.
if you, take the Spanish, you didn't result.
Yeah. Okay.
What was the name of this theory?
Just linguistic determinism. Okay. Or like it's often referred to as linguistic relativity, that like the language you speak kind of affects your thinking and your perceptions of the world.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're only talking like just specifically language, like not like the culture.
No.
Like just the language.
No, the words.
Okay.
Okay. Which is reflection of the culture.
Yeah.
But yeah, the
But
words.
like, if it's like a more flowy language, or like either hard, like rough,
Or no, even just in like the symbolism of things. So I have an example. We'll do the example tomorrow. This is gonna take a long time. We only have a minute left. So we'll do that. But like a typical example, like the Inuit tribe, like Eskimos, have like 20 different words for snow. But it's like, okay, because that is a reflection of like their environment. They have more words to describe
When we translate it just means snow, but to them it's like it's
fluffy
It's
snow or
nice and-
covered
oh,
snow or yeah.
So it's like, so it's like slush
Right.
and stuff like that.
So we have bet. Yeah. So I'll give you another example. Okay. I'll go post this in Facebook.
And ruffles. See, apparently.
Walking up on it.
I didn't hear
It's like,
that.
hello, hi, Chickaloo.